When an emotional manipulator tells you, you're rewriting history, they rarely care about the actual facts of the event. They are executing a deliberate psychological tactic designed to make you question your own sanity, so they can control the narrative. In this video, we are going to look past the pop psychology buzzwords and dissect the 5 most common phrases used to distort reality, the exact psychological motives behind them, and the precise verbal frameworks you can use to protect your mental baseline. Gaslighting does not happen all at once. It is a war of attrition. If you cannot recognize the linguistic patterns early, you slowly cede control of your memory, your judgment, and ultimately, your independence. Let's look at how it works. The term, gaslighting, is frequently overused in modern discourse. It is often misapplied to routine disagreements, simple lies, or differing perspectives. But clinically, true gaslighting is entirely different from a standard argument. It is not a difference of opinion. It is a systematic, repeated attempt to dismantle an individual's mechanism for reality testing. To bypass the noise of social media trends, this analysis draws strictly from established clinical research on coercive control and psychological abuse. When you lose your ability to trust your own senses, you become entirely dependent on the manipulator to define what is real. This creates a severe psychological dependency. In this analysis, we will deconstruct 5 precise linguistic phrases. We look at these phrases not to diagnose others from afar, but to give you an objective diagnostic lens for your own environment. If you hear these patterns recurring in your relationship, your family, or your workplace, pay close attention to what follows. Let us start with the phrase that acts as the primary defense mechanism for structural manipulation. This phrase is deployed when a manipulator is confronted with concrete evidence of a past behavior, commitment, or statement. The psychological motive here is a combination of denial and projection. By reframing your memory as flawed, the manipulator immediately shifts the burden of proof. The conversation ceases to be about their behavior and becomes an interrogation of your memory. Your brain begins to experience cognitive dissonance, the profound psychological discomfort of holding 2 contradictory beliefs simultaneously. You remember the event clearly, but the absolute certainty of their denial causes a minor neurological panic. You think, could I have misremembered? This is the most high-frequency phrase used to police your emotional boundaries. When you express a normal, proportional emotional reaction to disrespect or poor behavior, the manipulator does not address the source of your pain. Instead, they target your reaction to the pain. The clinical purpose of this phrase is to make you feel ashamed of your emotional intelligence. If they can convince you that your emotional calibration is broken, you will stop speaking up when they cross boundaries. You become quiet because you are trying to prove that you aren't too sensitive. This effectively trains you to tolerate incremental levels of mistreatment without protest. Subscribe to the Shadow Protocol to integrate these operational frameworks into your defensive strategy. We deliver structured, clinical analyses every week to help you systematically secure your boundaries against deceptive behavior. Let us return to the analysis. The next 2 phrases move away from your direct memory and begin to weaponize your empathy and your social standing against you. This phrase leverages your internal desire to be a supportive, caring partner, family member, or employee. It introduces an artificial ultimatum. While not a formal diagnostic category in the DSM, this dynamic functions as a highly precise behavioral description of conditional worth conditioning. The manipulator ties your moral value as a person to your complete compliance with their demands. If you hold a boundary, they frame that boundary as an act of malice or indifference on your part. Notice the structural elegance of this trap. To prove that you do care, you are forced to abandon your own needs and capitulate to theirs. It turns your natural empathy into a handle they can pull to manipulate your behavior. This is the linguistic execution of a classic social engineering tactic known as triangulation or manufactured consensus. The manipulator invokes an unnamed, anonymous group of peers, your friends, your colleagues, your family, to validate their critique of you. By creating the illusion that a collective group agrees with them, they multiply the psychological pressure. As established in foundational research on coercive control, this exploitation of social structure systematically forces a target into isolation. Humans possess a deep, evolutionary fear of social exclusion. When you hear that everyone thinks you are the problem, your brain perceives a direct threat to your tribal belonging. The primary motive here is isolation. If you believe your support network agrees with the manipulator, you will stop reaching out to that network for reality testing, leaving you entirely dependent on the manipulator's version of the truth. Before we examine the final, and arguably most dangerous phrase on our list, a phrase that frequently disguises itself as a genuine apology, there is a critical rule of psychological self-defense you must understand. It is the single metric that separates people who escape manipulation from those who remain trapped for decades. Pay close attention to this structural pattern. This is a linguistic Trojan horse. At a glance, it carries the cadence of an apology. But structurally, it accomplishes the exact opposite. A genuine apology requires an internal acceptance of accountability and an objective acknowledgement of harm caused. The phrase, "I'm sorry you feel that way," accepts zero accountability. It does not look at the action that caused the distress, it looks exclusively at your emotional state as the problem. It implies that the event itself was benign, and that the only issue is your irrational or inconvenient emotional response to it. When you accept this phrase as an apology, you are inadvertently agreeing to a narrative where you are the fragile variable, and they are completely blameless. Recognizing these phrases is only the diagnostic phase. Protection requires an operational framework. Here are the 3 immutable rules for defending your reality against systematic gaslighting. Rule 1. Cease the debate on reality. You must understand that a gaslighter is not engaged in a good faith conversation to find the truth. They are engaged in a tactical exercise to win an argument. The moment you find yourself arguing about what happened 3 weeks ago, or trying to prove the exact wording of a conversation, you have already stepped into their sandbox. Your response should be neutral, brief, and definitive. Use scripts like these. "We remember this differently, and I am not going to debate it. My reality is not up for negotiation." Rule 2. Externalize the record. Do not rely exclusively on your brain to maintain your timeline when you are inside a highly manipulative environment. The human mind is malleable under stress. Maintain an external, objective record. Write down dates, times, and verbatim bullet points of critical agreements immediately after they occur. Keep this log in a secure, private digital space. You do not do this to present it to the manipulator as evidence. They will simply invalidate the log. You do it for your own sanity, so you can look at physical ink or pixels and verify your reality testing mechanism. Rule 3. Shift from persuasion to statement. Stop trying to get the manipulator to validate your perspective or admit that they hurt you. They will not grant you that closure, because admitting it would compromise their control. Your boundaries are not requests for permission. They are declarations of your own future behavior. Instead of saying, "You make me feel bad when you say that," shift to, "I will not participate in a conversation where I am insulted, or called sensitive. If it continues, I am leaving the room." And then execute the consequence instantly. Gaslighting only works when it remains covert, when you mistake a calculated psychological tactic for a routine communication issue. The moment you name the phrase, analyze the motive, and refuse to debate your reality, the entire system begins to lose its power over you. If you are dealing with an individual who frequently utilizes these linguistic patterns, there is a high statistical probability that they are operating from a framework of covert narcissism. To understand how these individuals use quiet victimization and passive-aggressive isolation rather than loud grandiosity, watch our comprehensive analysis of the covert narcissist right here on the left. Maintain your baseline. Protect your reality. We will see you in the next analysis.